If you have a mirrorless APS-C camera like a Canon R10, R50, a Sony a6000 series, any of the Fuji X-mount cameras, this is probably the best lens you can buy. It's the Sigma 10 to 18 f2.8. And that f2.8 is important because that means it gathers 2 stops, but 4 times more light than this Canon 10 to 18. This is the sort of lighting you get in a restaurant or club, the kind of places where a lot of people need to take pictures. And the camera right now is at f6.3 because I'm using Canon's 10 to 18, and that's as wide open as it can go. But if I put on the Sigma, I can get some more light. This is the Sigma 10 to 18 f2.8, and it's gathering more than 4 times more light. And as a result, you just see a cleaner image. That's the signal to noise ratio being improved by a big opening on the lens. A lot of people think you have to buy an expensive new full frame camera in order to improve your low light images. Not true. You can just get a faster lens, and that's what you're seeing here. You'll see that same difference in still photos. So if you're shooting wide angle, low light, definitely get the Sigma. It also gives you some idea of how good the autofocusing is. Like, it's locked on my eye. There's no noise coming out of the lens. It seems to track me perfectly, even in really challenging conditions. Awesome work, Sigma. So what is this lens for? Well, it's a super wide angle lens equal to, on a Canon camera, about 16 to 29 millimeters. On other APS-C cameras, it would be about 15 to 28 millimeters. And for me, that's actually a fantastic walking around lens. They're also the perfect travel lens for older cities with narrow streets. I took it into Boston. I couldn't imagine any other lens. If I couldn't go back to 16 millimeters, I just wouldn't have been able to get so many important shots in Boston. But it's also going to be critical for anybody with an APS-C camera who's shooting in European cities. Florence, Paris, London, you need often to be zooming back all the way to 10 millimeters on this to get buildings and scenery in. I used it with my 33 megapixel Canon R7, and the whole rig was light enough that I was able to just hang it around my neck, and it was comfortable to walk around all day because it really is a light lens. But I did find one pretty big drawback. This is not a stabilized lens. The Canon version of this, the 10 to 18 f4.5 to f6.3, well, you can see there it is stabilized. Now, I brought my Canon R7, which has a stabilized sensor, and thus I was still able to shoot long exposure handheld shots. I was able to get shots pretty reliably down at 1/3 of a second, but sometimes at 2/3 of a second. Really long exposures, and that allowed me to show some motion and to get cleaner images at night. But if you have a different Canon APS-C camera, like an R10, an R50, an R100, those do not have stabilized sensors. And that would mean you'd be subject to camera shake. And for lower light shots, longer exposures, you'd probably get better results with the Canon 10 to 18. Though this is designed for APS-C cameras like my Canon R7 here, it's also really useful in a lot of full frame cameras because, especially in the Canon world, a lot of the cameras have better video capabilities with the crop. Like the Canon RP, full width, full frame, shoots only 1080p like HD. If you want to shoot 4K, it does so with a 1.6 times crop. And with that crop, if you were to put on a super wide angle lens, suddenly it's not super wide angle anymore. But you could attach this lens to a Canon RP and get wide angle, high resolution 4K video. So if you have a full frame camera that crops in for the video modes that you want to use or for the better quality video modes, consider getting this particular lens so you can shoot wide angle without a significant crop. Now, of course, sharpness is important to everybody. So I took some test shots with my 33 megapixel R7 here, and let's look at it side by side with the Canon version of this super wide lens. At the wide end, shut down to f4.5, the sharpness looks identical. I can't see a difference. In the corners though, which is really important for landscape photography, the Sigma is noticeably sharper. Now at the long end, 18 millimeters, again, in the center, I don't really see a difference. But at the corners of the frame, shut down to f6.3, the Sigma is again sharper. If you do buy the Sigma, shut it down when you can, because while it's nice that it opens up to f2.8, at both the long and the wide end, I find the image quality is better when it's shut down a stop or two. Open wide at f2.8, things become a little blurry. And at the wide end, we can see how much sharper it is to shut down to f4.5 compared to f2.8. I found this lens did really well in backlit situations. I shut it all the way down to f22 so I could create that starburst effect. And the starburst is interesting and pretty well defined. So to sum this up, I think the Sigma 10-18 is probably the second lens I would recommend APS-C shooters buy. It allows you to shoot wide angle, which in the modern world is more and more important. It's a fantastic travel lens, and it's a lens I would keep on my camera most of the time. This would be my walking around lens for sure. Especially in low light situations, that f2.8 is going to produce noticeably better results on your APS-C camera. Unless you're shooting long exposures or you have particularly shaky hands, in which case you might want to pick Canon's own stabilized lens to help smooth that out, or you might consider upgrading to the Canon R7, which is Canon's only camera that has a stabilized sensor. Now, as a reminder, you can get this lens for Sony L mount and Fuji X-mount, and it should be just as good on those platforms. It's a solid lens. Be sure to use our link when you shop. That helps to support this channel, helps to keep unsponsored, unbiased reviews like this coming. And don't forget to subscribe to see reviews, tutorials, photo news, and more. Thanks and bye.